I'm going to start this video off with a disclaimer, just so you know where I'm coming from. I have never personally watched a Peter Pan movie. And I know there's been plenty in the way of remakes and extended stories, readaptations of the story. Maybe I should watch one, and I'll try probably at some point. So I'm going into this with completely fresh eyes, but not a completely fresh understanding of public opinion. I'm covering this a bit late, like I do most things. I apologize. I'm working on getting caught up. It's a process. Anywho, I am aware in the time both of these trailers we're going to engage with have been out that most of the social media chatter that I've seen, maybe there's some positive, I don't know, entertainment and especially film is very subjective in public and audience response. Most conversation is leaning toward not interested or this being unnecessary as a work. And I'll try and be fair again on judgment to the movie, other than maybe some of the aspects of what I know, which I'll touch on lightly. But if it were me, let me start on the baseline here, at least how I approach this work on first consideration. If I was in the decision-making process in regards to Disney deciding where to go with Peter Pan, let's say you have two variables, two pathways of choice, right? We could do a Peter Pan and Wendy movie, or like a Peter Pan remake, or a Peter and the Starcatchers movie. I would pick the latter. I don't know if anybody else fits this, circumstance. Maybe some do. I have been pining away and begging for years for a Peter and the Starcatchers movie. Like, I would have loved to see an adaptation of at least the first 4 books. Those are the ones I read as a kid. It's an extremely strong fantasy series. Quite dark, in fact, but pretty sophisticated. Good imagination. I mean, they're, especially the first 3. I don't remember the 4th one as much, but the first 3 entries I read, I think on multiple occasions actually, they're very substantive fantasy books. And I do feel that they're a good adaptation, at least. So maybe, while I have not seen any Peter Pan movies, I'm familiarized with certain elements of the Peter Pan story through those books. I would have loved to see a film, even a film series, done on that. And as I understand, that was in development for a while, though I'd imagine because it's been 10 years or so. I forget the exact date of when conversation was cited on that movie being in active development, or at least development, whatever you want to call it. It's been a number of years. I'm assuming it's been shelved. So I'm a bit saddened by that. And by comparison, I'm like, well, instead we're getting this Peter Pan movie. It's Peter Pan and Wendy. I'm like, I would have rather had a Peter in the Starcatchers film. Like, to me, I'm slightly not interested on that respect. I mean, maybe the project will be good. Maybe this one will, spark with me and be like, I need to see this. I mean, I don't know. Again, I'm assuming based on what the chatter I've heard that this might be more so you don't really have to watch, but we'll see. I mean, it's a Disney live-action fantasy tale, and they're charming, though, Disney's in a bit of an iffy state these days in regards to its viewership, largely of its own making. And other studios are sort of filling the void of family-engaging or family-friendly entertainment. Let's see where Peter Pan and Wendy goes. Maybe this will be a charming release for some. I mean, I don't know. I'm certainly not I've made my critiques widely known, especially in regards to Disney, as I'm sure many of you would attest. I am certainly not your just accept and consume type person. I judge work accordingly. I try to be fair, but at the same time, like, well, I call it out as it is in terms of sentiment, and for me, I just don't experience this level of reach with Peter Pan. But if it were a Peter and the Starcatchers movie, even as a 25-year-old adult, I'm like, sign me up. I'd be on board immediately. Anywho, you could have done that, Disney, but instead you did another remake. All right, let's see. And every one of these live-action ones, and they're kind of fun, at least from some of the ones I've seen. Maybe not all of them are perfect. Maybe there's been some I haven't liked, but most of what I've seen I've liked. Let's see how Peter Pan and Wendy is for myself, and not just on social media chatter. And again, we're going to engage at both trailers. This is first the teaser.
Tell me, how did you come to Neverland?
I like the location choice. It feels quite spacious.
Are you
Lost Boys?
Every last one of us.
But you're not all boys.
So? What is this place?
That feels very Disney. In the modern era.
Just like he found all of us.
It's like he found me.
Peter Pan?
Were you expecting someone else?
What do you say, boys? You ready for an adventure?
Some of the VFX work looks pretty good.
It looks very far away.
It's closer than you think.
some cliche line writing, in my opinion. Maybe the script could have been a bit better, at least in some of the character interaction. Oh, that's pretty.
What is it that you're afraid of, my love?
Perhaps I don't want to grow up.
Hold the past in your heart, but where you go from here, it's up to you.
Wendy, Moira, Angela, darling. Where is Peter Pan?
I should have looked up a cast list before I engaged with this. Realization-wise, it comes across as a spacious and convincing fantasy tale. The location choices are pretty good. Some of the VFX work pops for me. I still, though, am in the camp of, I would have rather had a Peter and Starcatcher's film. Still, that has not changed. Okay, so Captain Hook is Jude Law. I've heard Hugo Weaving. I'm like, no, that didn't fit. Because I thought I heard that he was. Maybe he's in some other film I'm forgetting at the moment. Oh, Jim Gaffigan's also in this as Shmi? Oh, okay. Again, I'm going off of the Starcatcher's books here. I could see that. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not sure. Okay. It looks like a fun watch in part with a cliche script, at least in some of the character dialogue. Maybe the plot will be that way. I don't know. Visualization-wise, it's great, but you can't just judge a brownie without knowing what's in it or the expiration date, right? It could be quite a rotten brownie, or maybe just a stale one, or whatever. Maybe it's aging. This project to me feels, again, it's got a nice artifice, and it's quite attractive in visualization, but some of the foundations to me don't spark as much of an interest. And it does in some part feel, in script, slightly cliche. It also feels like familiar Disney. Like, again, I don't remember the Peter Pan story as well, other than based on the books. Like, the movies and stuff, I never watched one, as I said. But this first line about, you're not total boys, it feels very typical Disney. Like, we brought everybody in. And that's, to touch on it lightly, that's some of the conversation at least I've heard going in on part of, who's playing Tinkerbell? Yara Shahidi. To my knowledge, I've not seen her before. This might be a first performance introduction, and I will state outright, I try and be very fair, especially when I cover content. I try and keep this channel as open and perspective as I can, for the most part. Although I understand, not everybody, sometimes we have relationships where we agree to disagree, but I do at the very least try and maintain a hospitable demeanor here. On its face, and there's different terms this runs by. Some people prefer, I don't, that's not fair to say. I don't know what people prefer. I've heard race swapping or race bending, different terms. Personally, I have no issue with casting appropriately according to performance capabilities. And this is where I'm going to be fair. And this is not as much to the regard of Peter Pan, over this being a very recent example in Disney's track record. I'm going to be fair going in like I have with every other case. And what I will state as well, in conjunction to the Percy Jackson series and The Little Mermaid, I've yet to cover those, but I'm going to echo the same conversation I'm having here. I have no issue on its face with bringing on an actor or an actress that is best suited for the role as envisioned, right? The casting department auditions so many people, and they're like, okay, we want to find the person with the best fit. And sometimes you might see that, right, in the way that it is expressed via the studio. With Disney, though, and this is what drives me crazy about this every single time, is you'll have a role that's switched around in regard to, well, the character was portrayed in a book or another piece of media, in the cases of these Disney fantasy movies and original animation, a certain way. And the casting change is of, it's of differentiation. And so the studio, ideally what you would want is, because some viewers might have questions, understandably, and there's nothing wrong with that necessarily, right? As long as the audience is being hospitable and, reasonable in how they approach said dialogue. But if the audience is asking a legitimate question, right, in the studio, if the studio in an ideal world were to come along and be like, well, we made this choice because, let's say in the context of Little Mermaid, right, to be fair to Halle Bailey as well, We made the choice we made in terms of casting because Halle Bailey best embodied the personality of Ariel based on the original Little Mermaid animated cartoon, right? That would be so different. And that would be like, okay, as a viewer, right, I might be like, well, why'd you make the change? But now you fill me with confidence because you're telling me in the back of my mind, okay, she's the best fit for the role based on performance, that she had just that attractive quality to her in the casting decisions that we felt she's the perfect fit. That's not how it comes across, though, of Disney, because it's always voiced as, it's at least from my understanding, it's never, at least what gets the most traction, it's never put out as we made said casting change to reflect effective performance, or because we really liked this actress and we wanted to go with her, she had a great personality, or he, or whatever, you know, whatever the reason is, or in context. What instead it becomes about is we made said choice to best marry to extrinsic social concerns, and that's just not an attractive element to a broad audience, to your college academics perhaps, but, I mean, how many of them are watching, well, some of them are probably watching Disney, but, I mean, I don't know, but to a general audience, it just does not, especially for people who are looking at these types of projects that are adaptations, I think people become more concerned with how faithful is the portrayal, right? It's about the film's substance and the story and the performance and said efficacy of each individualized cast member versus outside concerns that in conjunction to a film's success might not be the most consequential. True, it maybe brings in a broader audience some respect, but at least in feeling and approachability, but to voice it that way, you leave a lot of room up for suspicion. Well, how effective is your project, right? Can the project stand by itself and its own merits, or are you trying to prop this up? And again, the way that Disney does this, though, just really bothers me. I'm going to bring this up again in conjunction to other cases, and it's something I've said before lightly with Eternals, Obi-Wan, the series, and again, what's coming, Little Mermaid and Percy Jackson, because this is a repeating cycle, and I'm so tired of it. It's extremely toxic, quite frankly. Disney puts out a statement like that, and people ask questions quite reasonably, but then the argument becomes, it's not even Disney saying this, Disney takes a back seat where the press jumps in and the usual suspects on different social media platforms, let's say primarily Twitter, invade the scene and start going, well, you're not allowed to ask said question, even if the question is entirely reasonable. If we're speaking in regards to Twitter, I have seen people that I follow who are reasonably asking questions in some respects be met with heinous responses akin to death threats. And I'm not saying that, by the way, as some because people from there are like, I got death threats or whatever. I mean legitimate threats of harm and stuff like that. I've seen types of statements. Disney does nothing to mitigate it, which is what drives me crazy more than anything. It's like, okay, we have to understand we have these toxic types of personalities in the world today, especially on social media. It does not help that the press joins in and foments perhaps a lot of it. Though I'm such a wide critic on the media these days, I mean, it's not a surprise. And they are unchanging. It's a learned skill, I guess, to be generally, to foment divisiveness. But Disney does nothing to step in and say, okay, certain dialogue is not allowed, right? Going after people and saying, or making heinous comments about how dare you object, or how dare you ask a question, go do something horrible to yourself, or to bring up one tweet, gargle glass, you moron. That was in reference to Master of the TDS off the Percy Jackson controversy. And Disney said nothing. Nothing at all. I don't know if that's been a big point of outrage with Peter, Pan, and Wendy. I'm just getting really tired of this being like, it's a constant cycle with them, where they'll make said casting change. And again, Yara Shahidi might be great. I mean, it has nothing to do with her as far as I'm concerned. It's just, my critique is not even with this movie, it's with Disney. I'm so freaking tired of it, because it constantly happens without change. And I know if I bring it up, I know I'm probably going to be bent with, oh, how dare you? But it's like, I'm so tired of watching people being unduly mistreated online for changes that Disney makes that they obviously stand by, but then do nothing to maintain a hospitable dialogue or any form of approach, which, as consequence, is probably going to deter interest from your project, quite frankly, if there's any interest to be had if this new Peter Pan and Wendy remake. Again, like I said, I don't know if this has been the subject of outrage. I'm just looking at it by comparison because I can't help but look at this and see a conjunction to other recent cases where Disney has made related changes and in casting or character portrayal, and it becomes this massive outrage online, and Disney just says nothing about it, where people are legitimately bullied and mistreated. I wish it would stop, but it probably won't ever. It's just a side complaint, though. I mean, again, I can't help but think about that in part when I look at Peter Pan and Wendy, because, again, this is familiar Disney. As far as the project is concerned, as I said, good fantasy realization on part of the VFX work and the world building and location choice. But other than that, it kind of comes across to me as a bit stereotypical and cliche. That's the first teaser, though. This is the trailer, a bit longer. Let's engage properly. Or fully.
I don't want to grow up. I want things.
The Stardust, to me, again, I would have much rather had a Peter and Starcatcher's book.
Whether you like it or not.
Gotcha! You were flying. A little bug did it.
I don't think that's a bug.
She is a fairy.
Are you Peter Pan?
Were you expecting someone else?
Okay, some of the personalities of the kids are quite cute.
I can
Is that?
Neverland! Is this everything you dreamed of?
I could never have dreamed of this.
What is this place?
If anything, it's the VFX work is going to ultimately sell this movie.
No growing up.
Are you Wendy?
Tiger Lily. Peter.
Peter!
Captain, it's Peter Pan.
Never say his name.
I can buy Jude Law's Hook. I kind of see it.
Don't touch my brother!
Miss me?
Just like old times.
All your times are old, Cap.
The hair is hilarious.
Everyone hang on!
Did you hear that?
That is one big...
To grow up might just be the biggest adventure of all.
I still feel that in part, some of the foundations to Peter Pan and Wendy feel a bit cliche. But like I said, casting might draw an audience. True. Jude Law is a good fit. Especially on performance, I buy him as Hook. Jim Gaffigan, I'm going to have to get used to. I did see that one shot. And like I said, the VFX work, there's some great, fantastical shots that to me, like the ship out of the water, the mermaids, the stardust, all that works. But VFX can only get you so far, and I'm looking at the basis of the story, and it's kind of like, some of the dialogue just feels really flat. Though the personalities of the cast do elevate this project, I feel this trailer's a bit better than the original teaser. Although the teaser can't escape some of those lines that were offered. And that, in Disney's case, is just probably asking for trouble, especially in the realm of public response. I would have much rather had a Peter and Starcatcher's movie. I still feel like, where's my movie that I've been pining away for since my childhood? Like, it's not here. And instead we've got this. I mean, I don't know, like, where's Lord Umbra? I want to see the shadow stuff, and nope, apparently not. So, I mean, I'm not really that attracted to it. Again, I've seen a good helping of Disney live-action animation adaptations, and it's, most of them are pretty good, but maybe some are lesser than perfect. But there's a feeling of familiarity now that's just getting, to me, kind of tedious. This one appears a bit better by comparison to some other projects that I've heard, at least on visuals. But still, I'm looking at maybe the foundation and the fact that this is not a Peter and the Starcatcher's movie, and I'm like, it kind of sits in this space of feeling typical and not not as revered. I'd be curious to hear how many of you perhaps agree in sentiment with me on this project down below, if you wish to articulate, your perspective at all. And are you somebody that, like me, wants a Peter and the Starcatchers movie and is still like, where's the movie I've been asking for years and not getting? Instead, I've got Peter, Pan, and Wendy. I mean, credit to the cast, they seem fine. Even Tinkerbell is quite bedazzling in terms of the VFX work, and maybe, Yara Shahidi can pull it off. I've not seen her before, so as far as I'm aware. Let me look really fast on her performance record. Have I seen it? The name sounded kind of familiar. Oh, she's been on a lot. The Sun is also a star. I remember that title from a couple years back. Didn't see it yet. Maybe it'll be fine. I mean, it might just sit in that territory of typical, but part of me is still like, where's my movie that I wanted that I'm not getting yet? I don't know. Maybe Peter, Pan, and Wendy will be fun. Maybe it'll entertain the family audience. I'm just kind of like, your scripting still part could have had some lines reworked. And the VFX, while fine, I mean, is it just going to basically be a tour de force of the VFX department, which, as I understand, if Disney, are probably being like, please shower us in praise. We deserve it for all our hard work. And you do. I mean, again, like I said, the VFX work for me is convincing and solid. It's just the foundation of this movie that I look at, maybe the tone, where I feel like it sits in typical space. And again, I look at what this film could be, and I'm slightly disappointed that we don't yet have the movie I've been wanting for a long time. Thank you so much for watching this video. Before you bounce, feel free to drop a like and comment, subscribe to this channel with a ding on the bell, and share this video with your friends. And consider checking out the description here. There you'll find links to my other channels, as well as addresses to my other social media accounts and ways you can help support my work if you feel so inclined. May God bless you, and looking forward to when our paths cross again.